Dr. Tara Narula is here with us to answer your most pressing questions on the coronavirus. Tara, good morning.
Good morning.
We asked folks yesterday to give us their most urgent questions.
They're good, too.
And they're really good. And the first one is one actually I had, too, which is from a viewer on Instagram who asked, what scares me is getting help if I'm really sick. When do I know it's an emergency?
And this is the important thing to know. So for most people, it's going to be mild. The symptoms are going to be mild. You'll recover. But you do need to understand when it progresses. And those things to look for would be shortness of breath, chest pain, a change in your mental status. You're more confused, more lethargic, bluish coloration to your fingers or your lips. These things should prompt you or someone who's maybe with you to say something is getting worse and you need to seek medical attention. Now, if you do choose to go to the emergency room, you might want to try to call ahead again to warn them that you're coming so they can prepare and decrease the risk of exposure to
I love that question too, Anthony, because I thought I get a runny nose. Is that it? I feel a tightness in my chest. Is that it? The slightest little thing, you're now wondering, is that it?
Right. And
so how do we go
be
past that, is that it part?
Right. Well, certainly some people do have mild symptoms, but what you really want to be aware of are those warning signs.
Okay. I like this one too. Rachel in Colorado, I also was wondering about this. Can you recover and then relapse?
This is so interesting, and there have been some reports out of Asia saying that people got the infection and then a couple of weeks later they got it again. So what we know about most viruses is that when you get an infection, your body mounts a reaction. You produce antibodies. Those antibodies do provide you protection if you see that virus again. The big question is really how long are you immune for? Is it a year? Is it a lifetime? Is the virus going to change a little bit like the flu does so that you need, for example, a vaccine every year? The one caveat to this is that there are some people who don't produce as big an immune reaction, so they may in fact be able to kind of get infected again.
If you don't have symptoms anymore, but you think you had it or you did have it, are you still contagious?
Another really great question. So, you know, what we know is that if you get exposed, usually you will mount symptoms within those 2 to 14 days. That's why that quarantine period is 14 days. If you do test positive for COVID and you're told to kind of isolate, then when can you re-emerge? And that's really when you've been free of fever for 72 hours without fever-reducing medications. Your symptoms are improving, and it's been 7 days since you first had that symptom, or you have 2 negative tests.
All right, we have Keith from Montana had a question about those who are potentially high risk. Here's what he asked. Let's listen.
We keep hearing how older Americans are the most affected by the coronavirus, but also those with underlying conditions. My question is could we get more detail on those underlying conditions? For me specifically, I have a type 1 diabetic child. Thank you.
So it's important to recognize what some of these underlying conditions are. So hypertension, cardiovascular disease, chronic lung disease, including things like asthma, diabetes, kidney disease in individuals who are on dialysis, cirrhosis, sickle cell anemia, cancer, and anyone who's immunosuppressed. So they take medications or they have a condition where their immune system is weaker. These are kind of the big categories that you need to know about.
Yeah, and I like the question about older Americans because I want to know what that means. I went to the grocery store to get orange juice yesterday. Walked in, walked out. My kids just hammered me because they said, you're over 60.
Yeah.
Okay.
My daughter does that too.
I know. I'm just thinking, can people over 60 who are in good health not go to the grocery store? Is that not a good idea?
Well, I mean, again, the more you can distance yourself. So if you're going at an off time where there's nobody in the grocery store, that's probably fine. But the more you can stay home and keep that distance important.
All right. Yes, going home to my computer. That's fun. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Tara.
We're all there with you. We're, you know, separated by a keyboard.
Yeah.
Tara, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And Tara will be back in our next hour to answer more of your questions, including the difference between allergies and the coronavirus. The symptoms can seem like they're the same. And as our pandemic reshapes daily life in America, please continue sending us your questions. You can email coronavirus@cbsnews.com. We will take a look.